Hello and welcome to this Letsignit tutorial. In today's video we will be looking at how to set up the SMTP connector manually. So you might wonder why this can be useful for you. In some cases our automatic SMTP connector setup will fail. Sometimes this is due to you having a spam filter on your Exchange server. And in this case, we will need to create everything on the Exchange admin platform. So the connectors, the routing rules, and any other possibilities that you would like to add. So let's head over to the Exchange admin center to start creating the inbound and outbound connectors. So basically what these two connectors will do is they will enable your emails to be sent to our servers and then to be received again from our servers. So basically we are just rerouting your emails in order to sign them, and then we send them back to your Exchange server. So let's head over to the Mail Flow tab under Connectors. So we will first be creating the incoming connector, so the connector that enables us to send the emails back to you. So let's add a new connector. So we'll be connecting from your organization's email server to Office 365. So your organization's email server is Letsignit in this case. Next we will give it a name. So we advise you to put something that will simply remind you of what mail flow this is equal to. So incoming connector Letsignit, for example. So over here we should keep these two ticked, and then here we will be adding our IP addresses so that your Exchange will know that everything is fine and that they can accept the emails back. We do advise you to follow our PDF documentation on this setup in order to make it a bit easier for you to find the elements. If you would like to have access to this documentation, please contact our support team directly on the chat or via email. Okay, so we'll click on this option, so verifying IP addresses. So we will need to add the IP addresses one by one. So we'll be copy pasting them from the documentation. So in total there are 6 of them. And then the last one. Okay, so we can click next. So now we just have a recap of what we've just done, so we can click on create the connector, and that should be fine. So now we will create the other connector, so the outbound connector, which will be used to route your sent emails through to our Letsignit servers. So we'll do the opposite, so from Office 365 to your organization's email server. So let's give it a name, Letsignit send-in connector. Same here, we will leave this ticked. So over here we should specify only when I have a transport rule set up that redirects messages to this connector. You can obviously modify this if you would like your connector to work differently, but this is the option we advise. And then we will basically add our relay so that the emails can be routed to our servers. So in this case it will be smtp-use.letsignit.com. Okay, so we can add that and then click on next. Over here we must tick this box here and then add it again. Okay, so this is not a tricky part, but something that's not very well thought out by Microsoft. So basically, they are asking us for a validation email, but this will not work in any case. There are a couple of reasons for that. The first being that this will be generated from an empty email address, so the from header will be empty and this cannot go through our servers. And secondly, we haven't created or activated the routing rule yet, so it cannot be sent. So over here you can put any email address that you want. This is just something we have to do, but we won't really validate anything. So click on validation and we just need to wait. So this can take a bit of time, but we need to make sure it finishes completely, or else we cannot finish the creation of this connector. Okay, so the validation has failed, but we can click on next. Yes, next. And now we should be able to save and create the connector. Next on, we will be looking at the different settings applied to the connector, and then we will be creating the routing rule. We will now be doing a couple of verifications in terms of the text formats of the emails being sent from your Office 365. So we cannot deal with rich text format when you are sending emails through our SMTP server. So we will just make sure that this option is selected. So we'll go into remote domains under mail flow. Default will open this up, edit the text and character set, and we should make sure that never is selected for the use rich text format. Next, we will be editing the spam filter policies, which you can find with the link that was given on the PDF documentation, which is this link over here, security.microsoft.com/anti-spam. We will then be opening the connection filter policy part, and we'll basically allow the same IP addresses we did earlier on in the inbound connector. Just a small note, in order to add them, you will have to add them one by one, pressing on enter after each one. So for example, if I want to add a new one, I just click on enter, and once that is done, you can click save, and then you should be good. We will then be creating the routing rule, which will be basically the basis of the SMTP connector. The routing rule is what's going to dictate how everything is handled, and which will maintain the activation of both the inbound and outbound connectors. Before creating this routing rule, please contact our support team and give us a heads up on which domains you would like to use with the SMTP connector. We will need to authorize these domains on the server side before you create the routing rule. If we do not get this done, you will have mail delivery issues, so please send us an email before creating this connector. So once our support team has confirmed the authorization of your domain or domains, you can now create the routing rule and activate it. So in order to create this rule, we must head over to the mail flow area in rules. So we will create on a new rule. Okay, so the name should be something like route email to Letsignit. We will then click on more options because we will need all of the options later on. Okay, so the first part will be this area. So we will want to apply this rule if the sender is located inside your organization. So the sender is external or internal, and then you should have your organization here. The second condition will be basically to verify that the sender's email address contains your domain name. So to do that, the sender address matches, and then you can put your domain over here with the @ at the beginning and a $sign at the end. If you would like to do a couple of tests before applying the SMTP connector to your whole domain, you can instead just type in your email address here and then add it and do a couple of tests, and once you are happy with the way things are working, you can edit this and apply it to your whole domain. So now we can validate that. And so we will want to do the following. We will want to use the connector we set up earlier. So redirect the message to the following connector, and you should find the name of the connector we created earlier on. Okay, once that is done, we will need to create 4 exceptions. So the first exception will be used to exclude any email containing an empty from header. We decide to exclude these types of emails for security reasons, so these emails will not go through our SMTP servers and therefore will not be signed. So to do that, we will click on the sender address matches any of these text patterns, and then we will add the sign to signify empty from header, and that should be good. The next exception will be to exclude calendar-in emails. So for the same reasons, we cannot let these emails go through. So in order to avoid them being not being sent, we will exclude them. So we will go in the message properties, include the message type, and then select calendar-in. The third option will basically be used to detect through the email headers if the email has already gone through our servers or not, to avoid it going through again. So to do that, we will click on a message header, includes any of these words. So first we will put XLSI version. Beware, it is case sensitive, so you must copy it exactly how it's written, like this, or in the documentation. And the version will be 1.0. So 1.0, click on the plus to add it and save. And the last exception will be to limit the size of the email to 30 megabytes. So we can add the message size is greater than or equal to, and that means 30,000 kilobytes. Okay. Over here we have stop processing more rules that need to be ticked, unless of course after this rule you have other important rules that are being applied. For example, if you are using a spam filter and the rule redirecting the email to the spam filter before going out is after the Letsignit rule, in this case you should not select this option. And then we will change the message header, sender address and message to envelope, and then save. Okay, As you probably realized in your PDF document that was given to you for this setup, we have a couple of examples of different cases that could cause an issue depending on how your organization functions. The most important one is the case of automatic responses, so out of office messages, for example. So now we will quickly have a look at the case of automatic replies. So we cannot allow automatic replies to go through our SMTP servers for security reasons, because the email header from area is empty, as mentioned earlier. So in order to avoid any delivery issues with automatic responses, we will create another rule that will be a higher priority than the previous routing rule. So let's click on create a new rule. So let's name it something like automatic responses. Let's click on more options. So we will apply this rule for all messages that are automatic responses. So we can do that in the message properties, include the message type and automatic reply. And in this case, we will do the following. So we will basically add some information to the email header. So the same information you saw earlier on in the routing rule. This will basically trick our SMTP server into thinking that the mail has already gone through the server, and therefore we will ignore it and it will be able to be sent normally without any delivery issues. So to do that, we will modify the message header, so set a message header. So we will put the same values as we did earlier on, also case sensitive, and then 1.0. Okay, and now we can save this exception. And now we must just put this rule to a higher priority, like this. Okay, and now we are done. So you should now be able to use our Letsignit email signatures from your mobile devices. As you've probably noticed in the documentation, there are a couple of other examples. If you have any questions on any of these case figures, you can always contact the support team on the chat or directly via email. Thank you for your time and have a great day.